There is a strange paradox that many people don't recognize until they are halfway through life. Sometimes not until the final stretch. Some live with remarkable decency. They are gentle, accommodating, quick to forgive, quick to help. They yield first. They endure quietly. From the outside, their lives look right, even admirable. And yet their inner world is not light. They tire easily. They grow sensitive. They carry a sadness they rarely admit. The more earnestly they try to live correctly, the more they feel they are losing. The more tightly they hold to morality, the more something seems pressed down in them, an unnamed weight. At first, they tell themselves it is normal. I think too much. I'm not practiced enough. Life is just abrasive. So they try harder, more patience, more restraint, more sacrifice. But the fatigue doesn't disappear. It only changes its costume. Irritation becomes resignation. Resignation becomes quiet self-pity. Self-pity slowly erodes the joy of living. It is not a dramatic collapse, not an obvious crisis, but a gradual dimming, as if a lamp is covered by a thin film of dust day after day. We tend to praise these lives. We reward restraint. We admire those who take the high road. We tell them they are strong, that they are mature, that they are an example. And they often believe it. They have learned to associate goodness with safety. If I am good, I will not be condemned. If I am good, I will be loved. If I am good, I will be protected from the chaos of other people. Morality becomes not only a compass, but a shelter. It becomes a place to stand when life feels uncertain. And yet, the shelter can become a cage. Zen has long insisted that suffering does not arise only from wrongdoing. It also arises from attachment. Attachment to evil is easy to name. Attachment to goodness is far more difficult because it wears a beautiful face. When we cling to anger or greed, the world calls it poison. When we cling to kindness, the world calls it virtue. One is exposed, the other is protected by applause. One feels shameful, the other feels noble. And so the second can live in us for decades without being questioned. Bodhidharma, the legendary figure to whom Zen attributes a certain blunt clarity, points directly to a trap that sounds almost offensive when stated plainly. The mind can cling to virtue the same way it clings to anything else. The problem is not that one lives ethically. The problem is the hidden possession, the self-concept that forms around it, the silent declaration, I am a good person. It is a refined trap precisely because society rewards it. The world praises the patient, the selfless, the endlessly accommodating. Over time, a subtle identity settles in. The person doesn't just do good, they become someone who is good. And that identity begins to function like armor, polished, honorable, and heavy. Armor is strange. We wear it because we fear being hurt, yet it also prevents us from being touched. It protects, but it also isolates. Moral armor does the same. It makes people reliable and respected, but it can quietly drain the tenderness from their days. The very effort to be good becomes a way of holding life at a distance, always managing, always controlling, always keeping oneself above certain impulses, beyond certain needs, stronger than certain vulnerabilities. What makes this armor exhausting is not the visible act of kindness, but the invisible residue that follows it. A person helps, and somewhere inside a small hope flickers. May I be understood. A person yields, and somewhere inside a small question remains. Will anyone notice? A person endures, and somewhere in the heart a ledger is quietly kept, not written in words, but in sensation. I have already endured so much. This ledger is not always conscious. In fact, it often hides beneath a sincere desire to do right. It is subtle, polite, almost embarrassed of itself. The person may even insist, honestly, that they want nothing in return. And yet the body remembers. The nervous system remembers. The heart keeps count in the way a bruise keeps count, not as arithmetic, but as tenderness that accumulates. The person begins to react not only to what is happening now, but to the entire stack of unacknowledged goodness behind them. A small disappointment lands on top of a mountain of silent effort, and suddenly it feels unbearable. When life does not repay them in the way their inner ledger expects, when gratitude does not arrive, when understanding is withheld, when the world remains indifferent, pain appears. It is not loud, it is dense. It is the ache of a goodness that wants to be confirmed, and the disappointment of an identity that feels unrecognized. This is the moment many people become confused. They did what they were told would bring peace. They behaved. They restrained themselves. They considered others. They gave more than they took. Why then is the heart still restless? Why does kindness not feel like freedom? Bodhidharma is said to have compared this to being bound by a chain made of gold. It is not a rough chain that cuts the skin. It gleams. It is admired. People envy it. But it is still a chain. It binds gently, almost tenderly, and because it binds without obvious violence, the bound person often doesn't realize they are trapped. They believe they are walking freely when, in fact, they have been walking in a beautiful circle. What is the circle? It is the loop of identity and proof. If I am good, I should be treated well. If I am good, I should be understood. If I am good, the world should meet me halfway. At first, the loop is quiet. It feels like fairness. It feels like reason. But over time, it becomes a kind of spiritual contract with life. And when life refuses to sign the contract, the person feels betrayed, not only by others, but by the very meaning of their effort. They begin to experience the strange bitterness of those who have done everything right and still feel unseen. That bitterness is rarely spoken. It is often converted into fatigue, into cynicism, into a closed smile that says, "It's fine," while the eyes say otherwise. The Zen tradition does not reject morality. It simply refuses to let morality become a throne. It asks a question that can feel unsettling because it does not flatter the self. Who is doing the good deed? If the answer is still me, if goodness still belongs to a someone who needs it as proof of value, then the self remains. perhaps softer, perhaps more socially acceptable, but still the same center around which tension forms. This is why Zen is often misunderstood. People imagine Zen as indifferent to ethics because it refuses to worship ethics. But Zen's refusal is not contempt, it is precision. Zen sees that morality can be used as a substitute for awakening. A person can be morally correct and still be inwardly bound. They can avoid harmful actions and still live in a subtle state of accusation against others for not appreciating them, against themselves for not being perfect, against life for not rewarding their restraint. There is a particular sorrow that lives inside this refined self. It is the sorrow of the person who never does wrong, but still feels wronged. They do not complain, but there is a familiar sigh in them. Each time they are not appreciated, not protected, not honored the way their goodness silently expects, the sigh deepens. What hurts is not merely the world's indifference. What hurts is the identity that goodness has been recruited to maintain. A Zen story, in its typical simplicity, captures this with one clean question. A student approaches a teacher and says, "I live well. I harm no one. Why is my heart still unsettled?" The teacher does not provide a lecture. He asks, "When you do good, is there any part of you that wants someone to see it?" And in the silence that follows, the student begins to feel the chain. Notice what happens here. The teacher does not condemn the student. He does not say, "You are selfish." He simply points toward what is true. Zen is not interested in moral shaming. It is interested in illumination. It assumes that once something is clearly seen, it no longer needs to be carried in darkness. The chain does not break through force. It loosens through understanding. Zen often distinguishes between two kinds of goodness, though it may not name them so neatly in every text. One kind is goodness with residue. After the act, the mind replays, waits, measures, subtly compares. The other is goodness without footprints. It occurs, and then it ends. The sign is not found in the outward action, but in the inward aftertaste. If after helping, the mind remains light and quickly forgets, there is freedom. If after helping, the mind revisits the moment, seeks recognition, feels faint disappointment when none arrives, then attachment remains. Nothing needs to be condemned, only seen. This only seen is not a minor point. It is the center. In modern life, we often treat insight as an intellectual decoration. Zen treats it as a solvent. When the mind sees clearly, it releases without drama. When the mind does not see, it grips and calls the grip principle, character, virtue. We can cling to a wound and call it loyalty. We can cling to control and call it responsibility. We can cling to superiority and call it integrity. To cut attachment to goodness, then, is not to become cruel. It is to stop owning goodness as identity. Zen calls this non-abiding, doing without clinging, acting without building a self behind the action. It is not mystical, it is simply clean. Like the reflex of steadying a child who is about to fall, no one thinks, "I am virtuous." The hand moves, and then it returns. The action finishes, and the mind does not keep it as a trophy or a debt. Here is where philosophy becomes intimate. The question is not, should I do good? The question is, what happens inside me after I do good? Do I keep the deed as a possession? Do I turn it into a story that proves I am worthy? Do I use it as a shield against guilt or as a weapon against others after all I've done for you? The mind that clings is not necessarily malicious. It is often frightened. It has learned that goodness is a way to survive. It is trying to secure love the only way it knows, by earning it. Zen suggests a radical possibility. Love does not need to be earned by performance. Peace does not need to be purchased by virtue. There is a goodness that flows when the self is not guarding its image, and that goodness is lighter, both for the giver and the receiver. This is why Zen speaks so often in images rather than moral arguments. One of the most enduring images is awareness as a mirror. A mirror reflects what arrives without selecting, without praising, without rejecting. A beautiful face comes, reflected. An ugly face comes, reflected. When the face leaves, the mirror holds nothing. It does not need to remember what it has reflected to remain clear. Clarity is precisely the result of not holding. Human consciousness, Zen says, can function in the same way. Thoughts arise, generous, petty, compassionate, jealous, and awareness reflects them. Suffering begins when a thought is claimed. This is me. This proves who I am. The person attached to goodness is not only performing goodness, they are preserving it, polishing it, replaying it, and in doing so they cover the mirror with a thin layer of dust. They may not see the dust at first because it is so fine, but over time it dulls the light. Zen's remedy is not another strenuous attempt to become pure. Striving for purity can become just another performance. The remedy is to stop adding dust, stop clinging, stop narrating, stop owning. Seeing is enough. When the mind sees attachment clearly, attachment loosens in a way force cannot accomplish. From this point, Zen's documentary eye turns outward, not away from the world, but toward the way the world tests the self. A ferryman is insulted by a passenger who is impatient. The ferryman does not argue. Later, someone asks if he was angry. The ferryman replies, "The river is fast, the boat is slow, the man is anxious. If I argue, will the river slow down?" The surface lesson resembles patience, but Zen's deeper lesson is about non-ownership. The insult did not find a solid, good person identity to strike. Without a self to defend, the words pass like wind. This is not a call to be passive. Zen does not confuse non-abiding with surrender. Non-abiding is not resignation. It is action without ego reaction. If speech is needed, one speaks. If silence is needed, one is silent. The difference is the inner motive. Reaction is the self-flinching to protect its image. Response is clarity meeting reality without needing a story. In everyday life, this distinction matters. Many people endure not because endurance is wise, but because they are trapped by the identity of being the one who endures. They do not set boundaries because boundaries would threaten the image of being good. They do not speak truth because truth might disrupt harmony, and harmony has become proof of virtue. They become loyal to peace even when peace is purchased by self-erasure. Zen's question, "Who is doing this?" cuts through that. If the endurance is rooted in fear, it is not freedom. If the silence is rooted in the need to appear noble, it is not peace. Freedom has a different taste. It is quiet, but not cramped. It is gentle, but not resentful. It can say yes without self-betrayal, and it can say no without hatred. A second story shifts the lens to good intentions that still cause harm. A child reaches toward a flame. One adult yells, another snatches the hand away. A third quietly brings their own hand near the fire and says, "Feel how hot it is." The child understands. Zen's point is sharp. Goodness without wisdom becomes control, because the self behind goodness cannot tolerate disorder. It confuses helping with fixing. It becomes urgent, righteous, and often exhausting. But when the self is not trying to prove itself as moral, goodness becomes patient enough to let reality teach what shouting cannot. This has consequences in relationships. Parents often control because they want the best. Partners correct because they care. Friends lecture because they mean well. The intention may be sincere, but the hidden self is there. The one who must be right. The one who must be the savior. The one who cannot bear uncertainty. When goodness is fused with ego, it becomes a subtle violence. It pressures others to match the giver's image of what good looks like. Then Zen offers perhaps its most understated portrait of non-abiding goodness. An old woman sweeps the road in front of her home each morning. No one asked her to. She does not announce it. Some people notice, some do not. Some thank her. Some assume it is her job. She keeps no score. She sweeps because the road is dirty, and when the road is clean, she puts away the broom and makes her meal. The act ends with the act. There is no identity constructed from it. Her simplicity reveals the heart of the matter. Many people do good while secretly keeping an invisible account book. Not written in ink, but in feeling. Each page is a sacrifice, a concession, a time they chose peace over truth, a time they swallowed anger to preserve harmony. The book is never shown, but it weighs the heart. Where there is an account, there will be comparison. Where there is comparison, there will be resentment. The old woman does not have the book, not because she is holy, but because she does not use goodness to define herself. She does not sweep to become someone. She sweeps because the road is there. Her goodness is not a performance. It is a gesture of belonging. Zen condenses this into another image, water held in the palm. An open hand allows water to rest. A clenched fist makes it leak through the fingers. Goodness is similar. When one does good and lets it pass, the heart stays light. When one grips goodness through pride, expectation, or the need for fairness, the peace leaks away. The tighter the grip, the faster the loss. The paradox, then, is not that goodness is draining. It is that clung to goodness is draining. Once goodness becomes a possession, it breeds fear. Fear of not being recognized, fear of being treated unfairly, fear of losing the identity that has been built. When goodness becomes property, the mind is forced to guard it, and guarding is tiring. Here is the unsettling comfort Zen offers. True freedom does not require becoming a better role. It requires dropping the need to be a role at all. People sometimes worry that if they stop clinging to goodness, they will become cold. Zen reverses the suspicion. Coldness often comes not from letting go, but from defensiveness. When you must maintain an image of being good, you build subtle walls. You help with conditions. You love with control. You endure while secretly protecting a wounded identity. But when attachment falls away, the heart softens, not weakly, but softly, in the sense of no longer being clenched. This softness produces a different warmth without demand. A person can say, "I don't know," without guilt. They can say, "I can't help," without self-contempt. And when they do help, the help is cleaner. It is not an investment. It is not a moral performance. It is simply what the moment calls for, like water flowing downhill without needing to be praised for obeying gravity. If this sounds abstract, Zen insists it can be practiced in ordinary life through small, almost invisible shifts. Notice the motive as it rises. Is there any hunger to be seen? Then act if action is needed. When the act is finished, put it down. Don't replay it as identity. Don't carry it forward as proof. Don't weaponize it as silent entitlement. And above all, do not turn non-abiding into yet another identity. I am someone who has let go. Even that is another golden chain. This is where many spiritual seekers stumble. They replace the identity of good person with the identity of detached person. They trade one mask for another. Zen laughs gently at this and points back to the simplest truth. Any identity you must defend will eventually exhaust you. Even enlightenment can become a costume if the self wants to wear it. In the end, Zen does not present awakening as an achievement. It presents it as a return. True mind, it says, has never been absent, only covered. Covered by the desire for praise, the fear of blame, the hunger to be good, the terror of not being good enough. These layers once helped us survive, belong, and feel safe. But carried too long, they turn life into constant performance. Bodhidharma's question remains simple and unadorned. Right now, where is your mind stuck? When asked without the need for a beautiful answer, the question opens a small space. In that space, the self loosens its grip, the chain slackens, the fist relaxes, and for a moment, The heart feels something it has almost forgotten, a lightness that does not depend on being seen. Goodness, then, does not have to be heavy. The weight comes from the story behind it. The story of being someone who must be good, must be recognized, must be repaid, must remain unblemished. When that story is put down, goodness returns to its natural state, quiet, unclaimed, and surprisingly effortless. Not a badge, not a debt, not a performance. Just a clean movement of life, occurring and ending like a breath. What changes is not necessarily what you do, but what you carry. You may still help. You may still forgive. You may still yield when yielding is wise. But the act no longer needs to become a monument in the mind. It does not need to be stored as proof that you are worthy, or as leverage against those who fail you. It can simply be what it is, a gesture that rises, completes itself, and dissolves. And perhaps this is the deepest relief Zen offers. You were never meant to spend your life maintaining an image of virtue. You were meant to be awake inside your own living, clear enough to act, soft enough to feel, free enough not to keep score. When the need to be a good person loosens, something gentler appears. Goodness without strain, warmth without conditions, morality without ego, compassion without exhaustion. Not because you have become less human, but because you have finally stopped trying to be someone.